third match of the day, our match of the day. I'm Matt Saberbold. I'm joined by Soleil. And Soleil, I am loving what I'm seeing in this one because it is just completely different how these bans and protects have worked across the board because of what looks like one deck different with Priest on Orange's side and the Aggro Shaman on Swidz' side.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to come down to the decks themselves. It can just be, you know, mind games and expectations of what they're each expecting each other to do, which led to something completely different. But, you know, we set Swidz up as a warrior specialist just before the break. And if we were to tell you that one of these players has protected their warrior, you would expect it to be him. But it's quite the opposite of that. It's Orange that's chosen to protect his bomb warrior going into this, whereas Swidz himself has protected that mage.
Yeah, and as a result, Swidz has had his warrior banned away from him because he's a warrior specialist. Probably also just because that warrior stack set looks like it's pretty good against Orange's lineup. Where you take a look at it right there. We are in Shield Phase Conquest for Season 2 of Grandmasters. You bring 4 unique decks. Before the match starts, you protect one of your decks, and that makes it ineligible to be banned. And then from there, you ban one of your opponent's remaining decks, and then you play a best-of-3 set where the first player to win 2 games is going to take it. Once you win the deck, it's out of contention. And so this is where we land. The Aggro Shaman, the Reno Mage, and the Highlander Hunter from Swidz taking on the Highlander Hunter, the Combo Priest, and the Bomb Warrior of Orange. And honestly, I feel like I'm a bit worried for Orange in this set.
Why is that?
I feel like Swidz, that all of his decks have game against everything on Orange's side. And that seems unusual to me. It always feels like there's like one really bad matchup that's in there.
I mean, a part of that, I think, is the strength of the Shaman that Swidz has brought. We saw how successful it was for Viper. He did have a little clutch moment where he had to rip exactly Electra off the top to get himself out of a rough spot against RDU. But so far, we talked about the aggro Rogue, but this aggro Shaman has ended up looking pretty successful as well. It might just be another classic Hearthstone situation where the aggro decks are just good for a little while.
Yeah, it is very differently built than Viper's was, where this one has 2 copies of Feral Spirit in there and is actually not featuring Electra to double up on the burst damage there.
Yeah.
But
Haunting Vision's the other card making way as well that we saw in Viper's deck.
Oh yeah,
make a big difference.
Noticing that Vicina in the middle of the key cards though, that pseudo activated all the time Bloodlust, attached to a 2/6 body, that card has felt quite powerful. And one of the reasons that I'm looking at this matchup in particular is Orange starting off with Combo Priest is, you know, I've played a lot of Quest Shaman to kick off this this metagame, and one of the strongest packages I have felt I've had to fight against Priest is a Lickum package.
Yep.
Where you're able to just bash through minions relentlessly with your 2-cost weapon that effectively has 3 attack.
Job's done.
That's the rule of Shaman. They are literally always overloaded.
It's the rule of this deck for sure. You know, we were kind of joking about it yesterday when Viper was playing aggro Shaman, but it's honestly pretty true. It is very rare that you know, because of the way that the overload crystals work with Lickum, you know, you have to have passed an entire turn without overloading before Lickum loses that buff, and that is so rare to have happened in this aggro Shaman deck.
Yeah, and Orange already faced with the decision on the turn 2 injured Tolvir versus waiting to turn 3 so that he can slap on this Power Word Shield. I would like to see it come down on turn 2 because if he draws a minion on the following turn, he's able to play it. And in the event this doesn't die, you get to start buffing it right away.
In the event that it does die, it's not the biggest deal in the world anyway because he already has Psychopomp in his hand. So it does also make it somewhat expendable on that front. It's a little awkward for Swidz to have to kill here anyway. Lightning Bolt isn't a clean answer on turn 2 just because of the mana inefficiency. If Lickum is involved, then it's going to have to be Lickum plus something to overload and be able to take care of it. So I think when you weigh up all those risks and rewards, it does come out in favor of playing the card on turn 2.
If Orange is going to buff it up, it's going to result in more net damage on your face. Or he could expend the zap now.
Yep. Orange kind of narrows his eyes, furrows his brow at that a little bit, gives a little nod, like, all right, okay. I don't think he's particularly upset about what he just saw, but having just drawn a complete whiff, that has changed the emotion entirely.
Yeah, I am a bit surprised by the zap. It speaks a lot for Swidz protecting his health total and just still having a smooth way to roll through this. The more I think about the zap, the more I like it. It just shuts down possibilities on Orange's side. And the big one I'm thinking of is exactly Northshire Cleric.
Yep, Norsha Cleric is a huge impact there. As it turns out, like extra arms plus the power word shield that Orange had both of would have been a pretty big problem for Swidz then to deal with.
End up taking 8 damage instead of 2.
Yeah, we'd also end up just expending multiple cards to be able to take care of it.
So now ahead on board.
It's where you want to be.
Ooh.
The sooner you can get ahead on board against this Priest deck, your chances of victory skyrocket.
So I am interested in Orange's turn here because the High Priest Ahmet has a really big target on itself, of course.
Yep.
I wonder.
In the event that it dies, though, you have the Psycho Pomp afterwards, and then you have the injured Tol'Vir, and you have the High Priest Ahmet in the pool. So if you res the High Priest Ahmet on turn 7, you would be able to play the Northshire Cleric alongside it. In Orange's spot, he says he wants to force out that extra damage right away, and then follow up with the High Priest Ahmet into the Northshire Cleric. If Swidz cannot fully clear off the injured Tol'Vir in this spot, what that means is then the Circle of Healing represents card draw as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize when you're falling behind in a game as Priest, how important High Priest Ahmet is for kind of swinging that back. So just playing the Ahmet there, having it die, and then you play the Psycho Pomp after and you get the Tol'Vir, you don't get your Ahmet back. All that time, it's likely that Swidz is potentially like moving further ahead on the board, and then you don't have your High Priest anymore to be able to make these big, crazy board states that Swidz can't answer, even though he is ahead in the game.
And I am officially lost in this spot. I don't know what to do. I don't have a ton of games on Aggro Shaman. I don't have a ton of games on Priest. I know you got a ton of games on Priest, though.
I do.
What's Orange thinking about?
Many, many things. He's looking at 2 juicy targets over there that can be Circle of Healing'd up to draw some cards. He's a little bit weak on options. But I think primary among his concerns is just making the most aggressive play to the board as he can, because he needs to start sticking minions sooner rather than later. There's 2 schools of thought that you can go for here. One is what he appears to be doing, which is just playing the Ahmet now with another 7 health minion and saying, you can't clear all this. I'm going to have a minion next turn. And then that allows me the base for my Norsha Cleric, for my Circle of Healing, for my extra arms. The other one is to be just a little bit greedier and try and get the full Ahmet and the 2 1-drops together in one turn, so you're putting 21 health on board at the same time.
Earth Shock drawn.
It's a monumental draw for Swidz.
What to do?
Without that Earthshock, dealing 14 this turn.
I'm
not a good time.
I'm thinking of a totem.
Yeah? Is it a vaguely bluey colored totem that you're thinking of?
It's vaguely bluey color.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I believe it has the words spell damage +1 on it.
It does. Well done for saying spell damage.
Gosh, if he rolled a spell power totem, it'd be insane.
And then you said spell power right afterwards. You got it right, and then you threw.
Spell power just sounds better. It sounds powerful.
It doesn't matter what sounds better if it's just wrong.
There is little time.
I don't agree with that. Admiral sounds a lot better. It's just wrong, though.
Wait, so we can call you Admiral?
You can do whatever you want. I mean,
may I call you Admiral?
You're an adult. And no, you may not. That little healing totem represents a very interesting problem.
That 1/7 represents a very, very spooky prospect right now.
I'm thinking of bumping this healing totem. Orange is thinking about drawing cards.
Yeah.
Doesn't get too many of them, though.
Oh, never mind.
Make it
what
4
did
of
you
them.
Just say, Admirable?
Make it 4 of them. 0 mana, draw 4 cards.
Yep. Remember, the Pyro procs again after that, re-damaging the healing totem, which will then potentially heal at the end of Swidz' turn.
Yeah, Swidz, I think, shifting in his chair adequately given the sequence of events here.
Orange fully splitting his buffs on this board as well. Very much has those Earthshocks in mind. Nephset Ritualist, another extra arms coming into hand as well. And just 9 damage from the Light Warden. Forget about the card draw, that in itself is worth a huge amount.
Yeah.
No combo pieces though. Orange is going to have to just try and do this with big minions for now.
Baby, we forgot about the Light Warden combo piece. It's 9!
Yeah, all right.
Well, Swidz is just going to die. Like, he can't defend himself in this spot.
Shock on the Light Warden. Totem buff. Solves 2 problems. Doesn't want it to heal itself at the end of the turn. Doesn't even want that Nausea Cleric to be living. So takes care of both problems in one fell swoop. 6, 8, 10, 12, just with the 3 copies of +2/+2 available.
Yeah, but you could draw so many cards.
Also, yes.
I guess you get to do both of those?
Yeah, you do. You get to push 10 and draw 2 cards if that floats your boat. Like Orange is just interested in consolidating board. I must admit, my mind just immediately did go to the Nephset Ritualist. It's just such a good value trade here.
Yeah, I think the thing for Orange to think about is how a Thunderhead could change the game. If the Vicina stays on board, all of the 1/1s from Overload represent 3/1 rushes instead. Yeah. That's the way you can lose your board.
I'm interested in this 1/1 going face, though.
He's going to cast spells then, right?
Yep.
Yep, and just most stats. If you're gonna wipe the board away, don't draw cards. Increase your board presence.
Yeah. It's curious, the 1/1 going face, you know, essentially mandating that a spell got cast there does cost him the opportunity of having a Light Warden in play here because he doesn't have mana available for that after the arms. Which I wonder whether that's more valuable, having that extra Light Warden in play than the +2/+2 on your Wild Pyromancer.
As TJ always says that I say, I think it's 2 roads to El Paso. But the actual saying is 2 roads to El Dorado. And I think almost any way you slice this, Orange is walking away.
Oh, for sure. He's in an incredible position. Swidz just been so unable to get anything going. He's the one that's supposed to be playing the aggro deck. Hard to compete with the quality of minions that you can create with this priest deck so early in the game. Extra arms didn't even really become a factor until very, very late on. So maybe there is hope post-nerf that this deck will still be playable.
Definitely. I mean, Orange just ran circles around in that game. That was really the difference in that one. It was being able to draw 4 cards for 0 mana.
How long were you working on that one for?
Just now.
Okay.
I got funneled into my head from the producer, Abar. He said, was that Orange Slice's joke intentional? And I thought about it and went, it was not. So anyway, you walk away with it, with Orange. Anyway, you slice it.
Anyway, you slice it,
yeah.
You messed up recapping your own accidental joke. That's the most admirable thing I've ever heard.
That's where I got confused. Is I was like, I didn't do that intentionally. Or did I? I don't even know. Maybe I did. My brain and I are different entities and we have conversations with each other. The point I'm trying to get at here is that Orange went for the risk on the Northstar Cleric, said, you know what, 1 card. Perfect card peeled off the top, and that's just game after that. Like, you drew that Wild Pyromancer, 4 extra cards come in. There's no way Swidz is coming back from that spot.
Yeah, and it goes back to a point that we were, you know, exploring when there was, I think it was Holy Wrath Paladin, where we were saying, you know, card draw begets card draw. When you have a deck that's built like that, it does snowball very, very quickly when you have all these little tools that work together to draw more and more cards. You can be missing all of them and then just pick up the first one, and the first one picks up the second one, and then suddenly you're off. And that's very much what that priest deck resembles as well. You can have a very, very stalled out hand for a number of turns and then explode very quickly. It is a fine margin, though, because we saw what 1 turn too far looks like with Pheno yesterday, where if you're stalled out for too long, then there's just no way back into the game.
Indeed, it's a combo deck in its fullest potential. 1 single card draw can change the game. So we got to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to find out if Swidz can tie this up, or if Orange is going to run away with this one on his road to wherever it is TJ will say that I say it leads. Stay tuned. We got 3 more matches after this one.
Well met, friend. Ooh.
Let's get this over with.
I win!
Oh, what an amazing game! Oh, well played!
Here's to the winner.
My name is Paul Nemeth, aka Soleil, and you can find me on Twitter at SoleilHS, and more importantly, my stream, twitch.tv/SoleilHS. Tune in, twitch.tv/SoleilHS. A day in my life, I wake up when I feel like it, then I go to the gym when I feel like it, after that I stream when I feel like it, and then after that, I try and do something productive, and it doesn't always work. My personal goals for this year, I prefer to make short-term goals. So I try to live each day as best I can and make good decisions in the moment. And I don't focus too much on long-term goals because that can be complicated. And I think it's good to keep things simple and focus on what's important in the here and now. You know, it would be pretty cool if I could be first place in the Grandmasters system, but to be completely honest, I don't expect that. Just saying's a little bigger than me. Yeah, second place. That seems like a realistic goal. I could probably finish second place in the Grandmasters program. And I feel like second place it's a nice, comfortable spot for me. I'm into second place.
Got to look at Soleil during the break, who will be in his expectation to get second place, I guess, because Just Saying is bigger than him. Faces off against Just Saying later today in the Americas region. So we're wrapped up here. You guys can check out that action there. And you can always keep up to date with the schedule at playhearthstone.com/esports. I'm Matt Saberbold. I'm joined by Soleil. And Soleil, we just saw Orange rocket off to a Game 1 win with Combo Priest. A single card draw changed the entire scope of the game.
Yep, and it's a very important win because, you know, you said Swidz had a pretty good-looking lineup overall, and one of those matchups where he would have been hoping he can get some work done is with that aggro shaman. Something that the Priest can crumble to is just a deck that can get on board quite quickly with an early curve, available some of the Murlocs that are there, and then pushing away. But now we see those two protected decks, the Warrior and the Mage, could be coming into play in this series in a very big way.
Indeed, that's going to be what they're queuing up next. Swidz is going to be on Mage, and Orange will be on the Warrior for this one. Important to note, Orange is on Bomb Warrior, and Swidz's Reno Mage is I'd say a little bit on the greedier end with how he tends to pack the deck. Both of these players actually in the Arena Mages opted for no Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron. In place of that, Swidz has actually gone for a Pyroblast in that 10 mana slot. And kind of looking at some of his tech choices, he's got a copy of Acidic Swamp Ooze, he's got a Volpera Scoundrel, he's got a Twilight Drake. He's got some of that auxiliary stuff that's meant to just kind of do something while you wouldn't normally do anything and try to make an impact on board. You know, we've seen players go with like really defensive options with Bone Wraith and stuff. He's kind of got a more straightforward game plan where he says, you know what, I think I'm going to be all right.
Right.
Probably a Polymorph in the deck as well.
Well, another thing that'll be making him feel like he's going to be all right this game is that copy of Luna's Pocket Galaxy chilling over on the far left. But Orange's hand is nothing to sniff at either. Has the early curve with the Frightened Flunky and then both copies of Wrench Caliber on top of that as well. And I can't remember who tweeted me this when I was talking about Luna's Pocket Galaxy, talking about some of the nerfs on Twitter the other day. Someone responded to me and said, yeah, but you know, there are still counters to it. If I'm playing Bomb Warrior and someone plays Luna's Pocket Galaxy against me, I'm just going to shuffle 4 bombs into their deck. And that is a real good, that's about as good a response as you can get, because one of the things with Luna's Pocket Galaxy is once your deck is discounted, you're heavily incentivized to then want to draw cards and get through your deck and find those options. If your deck's then full of bombs on top of that, it can add up quite quickly.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think that I'm always in fear of pretty much any time someone's facing against Bomb Warrior is the ability to have the Bomb Warrior get off to an aggressive start and just push you out of the game. Like, the Bomb Warrior natural game plan is shuffle bombs into your deck and then have you under enough pressure that I can just simply wait and you die as a result. You know, Luna's Pocket Galaxy is not something you pretty much ever want to see your opponent cast when you're playing Bomb Warrior unless you have a super aggressive start, in which case they spent 5 mana not fighting back against the board. Right. So your aggressive start then snowballs even harder. Orange has got kind of the medium start here where he has the Frightened Flunky on turn 2, but he doesn't have a minion to add back behind that. So when he sees that hero power from Swidz, that hero power is pretty telling of the kind of hand Swidz will have. It's going to be something that's, you know, looking at turn 4 and turn 5 to do something big, and whether that's going to be Twilight Drake plus something else, or whether it's going to be simply getting a Luna's Pocket Galaxy. Both of those situations for Orange right now look pretty bad.
Yeah, a lot of little things just going on there. You see Swidz passing up an Arcane Intellect on turn 3, doesn't want to cast it because he has Luna's Pocket Galaxy coming, and the card draw after a Luna's much more valuable than card draw before, and you see the reason for that, he picks up an Alexstrasza into his hand, costing 9, which is one of the most vital minions that you want discounted to 1 when it comes down against Warrior. On the other side, Orange now picks up a Blastmaster Boom, which gives him a lot of plans for where these Wrench Calibers are going over the next few turns. He can swing on turn 3 here, he can swing on turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, turn 7 Blastmaster Boom can come into play if that's the way it works out.
Yeah, I do think that he should be taking this line as well. With just no pressure to add back behind this, he gets to send another Wrench Caliber on 4, and then for his sake, he's hoping that he draws another minion. If not, he's going to roll into a turn 5 with you know, in this case, it'll be the second Wrench Caliber or the minion that he draws. Yep. And then right into our Megadillo, which leads into the Blastmaster Boom. So his curve here has turned into aggression very quickly with just a single pickup.
And this is exactly what you were talking about earlier. Go ahead, spend your 5, doing nothing in the immediacy. I'm going to push back, I'm going to push 6 more. There's going to be a pile of bombs in your deck.
Yeah, and this is definitely an attached Ziliax kind of turn.
It's looking that way. That Wrench Caliber is almost always damage. This Ziliax is only sometimes damage. If I can upgrade sometimes damage into always damage, that's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, and so Orange, I think, you know, this is where that Polymorph, that single copy of Polymorph in Swidz's deck actually becomes relevant. Is it something that ticks to your mind?
I wouldn't care too much, I think. If I'd like just push 6 damage here, get Polymorph, get initiative back the next turn just to drop our Megadillo and keep going. Seems totally reasonable to me.
I agree. You know, I'm looking at the copy of Voodoo Doll, I'm looking at the copy of Polymorph. There is something to be said, though, about front-loading the bombs and saying the longer they're in your deck, the higher chance you have to draw them.
Yeah. Get on board with that, too.
Whew!
And actually, I guess, looking at Orange's hand, with Blastmaster Boom and Safeguard available, he's putting so many mechs onto the board in the coming turns anyway, that Ziliax is most likely going to find a target to bank itself as damage anyway. Yeah. So the fear of missing out on that Ziliax damage is not as high as I might have initially thought it was.
What to do? What to do?
You know you're in a good position when both of your options look good. And that, to me, is the story of that little Clockwork Goblin and Ziliax. Both options look good to me.
I think that Ziliax that came down from Swidz was the strongest argument towards putting that Ziliax on yourself and pushing damage. Ziliax against the 3-3 there was really effective for Swidz. Much more effective, I would argue, than a Polymorph or a Voodoo Doll would have been.
Yeah. Imagine if that Mirror Entity had been taken.
It's one.
Still 4 more bombs in the deck.
4 remaining, yep. 2 fully expended Wrench Calibers and a Clockwork Goblin. One of them drawn. Still the full package of Blastmaster Boom. There is that Polymorph.
Yeah, this Blastmaster Boom is
Scary.
whew, it is really good.
Yep. Orange nods. All right. Yeah, exactly what Swidz did not want to see there.
All right, so let's dig up some counterplay.
That's about 15 damage of Boombots just in play right now. Plus 4 bombs in the deck. Plus magnetic options from hand for orange.
I'm gonna win big.
Yeah, I like the Scoundrel first because it gives you a chance to find like an Arcane Explosion or what have you. And so what I'm looking at is being able to load minions onto the board like the Doomsayer, the Twilight Drake, etc. You wipe out the Boombots, hope they connect with your minions,
Yeah, okay.
and then able to freeze out the boom afterwards.
Okay.
So that failing to show up, Swidz is just straight up in trouble now.
Yep. I think he just has to continue to do the same thing, right?
He doesn't have a way to stop this. The Boombot's chipping, though. Like,
Right.
He's got an Ice Barrier up, but
Yep.
that only does so much.
Yep.
Time runs out on me.
Decides to fully remove the Blastmaster Boom here as opposed to leaving it until next turn. He does have a Flame Strike available, but a Flame Strike is a very expensive investment to have to commit himself to take care of the 7-4. I respect dealing with it.
Now sequencing as well for orange.
Even if you knew it was an Ice Barrier, do you think dealing the 6 here is enough to just go ahead and activate it?
Well, I think Flame Ward is going to be on his mind.
Sure. Goes for the buffed up Ziliax as well.
That's the thing, is like...
Got for a second that it had the buff on it. Like just factoring in 3 extra damage from the magnetic, not the 5.
And so that's where orange wants to check this first, is he wants to go, okay, let's figure out what sequence this actually is.
Splitting Image, no.
So now Ice Barrier, Vaporize, Flame Ward are going to be the next 3 that are actively on your mind.
Yep.
Unity. Precision.
So with Flame Ward in mind, I was going to say he might consider 6 into the Twilight Drake to get more bomb damage to pay off. I do like just checking with the face with the bombs.
Yeah, I think the correct is the face check. And now you see for Mirror Entity on the second secret, because it was randomly generated, you see that it's not shit face.
Ice Barrier chewed through, Swidz down to 15, 5 bombs now remaining in the deck. And a pretty useless looking Pyroblast drawn, it has to be said.
You know, I'm genuinely curious about an opposing Conjurer's Calling. I just think there's too much stuff out there that you have to handle. Like, I think you have to be on a Flame Strike game plan this turn. Just hope things work out. The fact that that's a 6/5 taunt Boombot, it just shreds through your Twilight Drake. And you need this Twilight Drake, I think, to connect with that. I guess the difference would be you have a Ray of Frost that can freeze it in place if your Twilight Drake were to die to all these boom.
Right. You're talking about sequencing of whether you ping and then attack and then flame strike, or do it the other way around, which is a little bit more high rolly in terms of you can tank much more bomb damage on this Twilight Drake by doing it this way around. But it has the disaster. It has the disaster where it took one more damage than that, and you then had to use Ray of Frost instead while leaving it on the board. That 3 is crucial, though, because that is now a break point for Orange, where it's 2 bombs instead of 3. Alex Straza, of course, in hand for Swidz that can change that back to 3 bombs needed. But Alex Straza, if that's the play that has to come down, every minion that Orange gets to play this turn, -1 from that Ray of Frost is going to get to connect.
I think that Swidz, with Pyroblast in hand, had to be interested in offensive Alex Straza.
Yes, oh, of course.
On
if
this
you can
turn.
set that up, that's the dream.
Oh, and the Siamat drawn as well. So now, Alex Straza frees the safeguard. The Alex Straza would be offensive in this position that I'm discussing.
Okay.
So Orange down to 15. You Ray of Frost the safeguard. You roll into the following turn with Conjurers calling Siamat options.
From the south, come to my aid.
Ooh!
However, there's another way to slice that. You hold the Alex Straza and wait till you can secure damage onto your opponent's face. You Alex and then attack.
Yep.
That's almost always the ideal setup behind an Alex Straza. And so being able to land the Siamat Conjurers calling this turn, a major deal for Swidz.
Warpath, very awkward here. Needs to get 1 damage onto that. Is that Taz Whisper? Is that what that is?
Tack Naz Whisper.
Tack Nos, yeah, sorry.
So it's going to be double Restless Mummy into Dynomatic.
Yeah. But the Warpath was just almost perfect. It's just the fact that the Amani Warbear had Taunt, meaning that the damage couldn't be allocated in the way that Orange would have liked it to.
Swidz, once again, I think is going to be thinking about offensive Alex Straza. He's at 10 and he's safe this turn. And he draws Kartut Defender as well. So now, there's 2 different things. Number 1, you could catch the breakpoint on yourself with the Alex Straza. You could Conjurers calling the Kartut Defender. Or you could offensively Alex Straza, drop the Kartut Defender, and say, you know what? Deal with this.
It's a really tough choice, honestly.
I think back to the World Championship where Hunter Ace said, Alex, you gotta turn. And that's what you should do with that. A nigh perfect draw for Swidz in that spot. But a nigh perfect draw for Orange as well.
I was going to say, again, the Kartut Defender just made the Warpath so awkward. The fact that these minions couldn't attack into the Alex before the Warpath starts getting cast. That Omega Devastator just changed everything.
So the thing to think about here for Orange is the sequencing on Omega Devastator and the Warpath.
Yep.
So step 1, your Warpath. Step 2, set this to 1 health. Step 3, your Warpath. Orange knows that the Pyroblast is in Swid's stack. He's interested in getting as much armor as he can.
Crucial step 4, you push the 1, because that matters. Kartut Defender healing back up to 16. The Eternium Rover living with the way that Orange sequences it correctly. Gets to push the 1 and put Swidz back in range of 3 bombs. There's one of them.
And Luna does not do anything when that far right card in your hand costs 10 mana. Swidz needs to have this Doomsayer go off. He has to get initiative back and find a way to develop.
Even if Luna did do anything, it would be a bold call for Swidz to just go digging in his deck right now while he's at 10 health with 4 bombs, I believe, still in there.
Orange can clear if he wanted.
Does he want to continue representing pressure? I think he does. I think he does.
Well, it's time to take a gander at the deck list and figure it out. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. It's an open deck list format, so Orange is free to take a peek over and see what tools that he and Swidz still have remaining.
Such a weird clear, though. To preserve, what, a 4-3 and a 3-1 on the board at the end of it all?
What now?
The reason he may not want to protect would be that it doesn't change the breakpoint. The 4 damage would set Swidz to 6. You still need to connect further damage from there.
I mean, yeah, yes. It would set him to 6 and force him to spend 2 on pinging the 3-1, which is not nothing. That is also a relevant factor.
Behold the tools
Yikes.
of
Swidz draws a bomb.
And by his reaction, I think this might be a second one, and it is. Woo! 16 cards remaining when he started to draw those bombs. I believe 4 bombs in total, drawing 2 of them in a row. That is a big yikes for Swidz, but it's a happy boy as we get a good look at Orange. That is a very, very clean victory for him.
Yep, and you know, that's the nature of Bomb Warrior too, is it gets pressure going, and if it's not counter-pressured, there's so much time left for you to draw the bomb cards and lose because of it. And so I do respect the line that Swidz went with. I think he found the right way to win that game, which was the offensive Alexstrasza and try to lean on the Pyroblast from hand damage. That forced Orange to have an answer that turn. And without an Omega Devastator draw there, I wonder if that game goes very differently at the end. Yeah,
that Pyroblast is a big talking point as well, because as mentioned, that is a card that's kind of in his deck, which you can almost directly relate to the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron, right? And there was a turn where he really desperately needed to draw something. He drew a kind of a dead card in a Pyroblast. That turn, I believe, was on 9, so the puzzle box would have been equally dead that turn. But then afterwards, you saw it didn't really look like a puzzle box, like a Pyroblast game. It looked like Puzzle Box might have been able to put something together to get him out of it. And you see just the expense of having 10 mana spells in your deck. That's the one thing in that deck that can make Luna's particularly weak as well. You saw that interaction not line up. So Pyroblast, a controversial choice to be in that deck, and it certainly did not look like it paid out too well for Swidz in that particular occasion.
Not in that one, it did not at all. But Orange is ready for an interview. Orange, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, congratulations on this win. This was a pretty lopsided victory that you had on your side. The blowout with the Priest in game number 1, and then pretty big blowout with the Bomb Warrior in game number 2. Talk to me about your lineup building this week and some of the favorite decks that you weren't perhaps able to bring this week.
Well, it was kind of stressful preparing for this one because we just had Master Tour Soul, and then after that I also went on vacation there with my girlfriend for a few days. So it was... I didn't have too much time to prepare it all, but I took what I knew from Master Tour Soul and took the decks that I practiced. Then I also happened to find this warrior list from Shao T that you just saw played. That I changed a few cards in, and I was really, really happy with. Basically, I didn't want to do anything too fancy week 1 since I had limited testing. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't want to talk too much about decks that I didn't bring because with the patch coming, I have a few that I think can surprise people next week.
All right, I want to ask you a question about a deck that you did bring then. It's something that Admirable and myself have been debating about, and it kind of seems to be about a 50-50 split between the deck lists. No puzzle box in your Reno Mage. Swidz was the same on the other side. Can you just talk to us a little bit about pros and cons of puzzle box and why you chose not to use it?
Oh, yeah. I think Puzzle Box was really, really good for Master Tour Soul in the Specialist format, because in Master Tour Soul, the 2 most relevant matchups to play was Mage and Warrior. In both those matchups, Puzzle Box is very good, I would say. But against most other decks, Puzzle Box is really bad. So, but when, like, a big percentage of the field is Warrior Mage, then you want that card in your primary list for Specialists. But in a multi-deck format, you're going to play those matchups a lot less, especially since one is usually getting banned out of the 2. And then I'm not interested in having Puzzle Box in my deck whatsoever, because against all the faster decks, it kind of sits dead in your hand a lot.
And you mentioned the balance changes. I kind of want to talk about the changes just from Season 1 to Season 2 overall, and your thoughts on the matter. What you like and what you don't, and what you dislike.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
The changes from Season 1 of Grandmasters to Season 2 of Grandmasters. Your thoughts on them?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say the same thing that everyone else said in their interview yesterday, which is that I'm very happy that we're playing multi-class again. It's just so much more interesting. You can tell in our practice group, like, how many comments there's been about like how to approach matchups and how many matchups we have to discuss. Whereas for Specialist last season, it was like you had to know very few matchups inside and out to play perfect. And with this format, it's just not enough time to be able to master all the decks and all the matchups that you can potentially play in a series. So I'm really happy. It's way more complicated to prepare and play this season. And I mean, I'm playing this game because I want hard and complicated games.
So last season you made it to playoffs. I believe it was Calento who ended up beating you in the playoff stage, and we saw when that happened sort of quite an emotional reaction from you on camera. Like, how much does it mean to you to like play Hearthstone at this level? You know, how seriously do you take it? You know, we saw that you took the loss quite hard last season.
It was Fino that beat me.
Oh, my bad. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And while losing to a teammate is like, if I'm gonna lose, that's the best possible. It's still I don't know. It was very hard. I invested a ton of time into last season, and I'm gonna put in just as much time this season, if not more. But at that point, like getting that far and feeling like I was this close to getting to the global finals, and I also lost due to I made a pretty big blunder in the second game that I ended up losing. So I took it pretty hard, but I've gotten a bit of a break, and I've forgotten about it now. It's just they do my best this season as well. I mean, there's 2 Europeans going to the global finals. I'll be the second one instead.
Well, that's what I like to hear. And Orange, you alluded to some of the decks that perhaps you have going to cook up next week and when the balance change hits. So I'm really looking forward to that. You've always found a way to bring something cool to the table. So congratulations on this win, and I can't wait to see you play next week.
Yeah, see you guys.
He's been one of the oldest competitors, I think, in the scene.
Yeah.
A lot of it, though, it's interesting to me because so much of his early career was tournament circuits that were not the Hearthstone Championship Tour system. It wasn't until 2016, I believe, that he actually even played a playoffs. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
That's kind of crazy to think about, that in such a short time, 2016 he plays his first playoff. He gets to the World Championship. He dominates the tournament circuit in 2018 well enough to be able to be here in Grandmasters. Like, that is such a big ramping point from playing auxiliary circuits to Hearthstone.
Yeah, it was kind of a meme for a while, the idea that like Orange just couldn't play ladder, and that was, you know, the reason why we didn't see him in playoffs for a long time, is because back then a lot of the focus was just get those top 25, top 50 finishes on ladder to pick up Hearthstone Championship Tour points as they were back then. But he was always, if you put him in a tournament environment, particularly with, you know, deck lists available, and he got to study and work and put the time in, he's always been a killer. He's always been a monster. He's always been one of the top players, and I have a lot of respect for Orange. I get along with him really well. I've been trying to ask at least one troll question to each player that we interview just for my own amusement. Couldn't even really think of one. I just think he's a nice guy.
Indeed. I think so as well. And I also think our next 2 people are nice guys, even though one of them seems to not think so much of me. Sunday is taking on Calento in our 4th match of the day. We have 2 more matches that are coming up after this. Of course, it's a 6-match Sunday here for the European region. And so let's go ahead and dive straight into this one. A big match taking place between 2 of the best records that we had in the European region from last season. And they're having to get going very early on in Season 2.
Yep, 10-4 on both sides throughout the league season. Hunter Ace really... all of that was backloaded. It was basically just a clean sweep through the second course of round robin. He had a 7-0 streak through the second half, 3-4 in the first half. So absolutely a tale of 2 halves when it comes to Hunter Ace. He really peaked at the right time, and it looked for a moment like he was going to, you know, run all the way through that playoff bracket as well, until Fino ended up being the one to take it all down, book the spot at BlizzCon.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the goal for him right now. You know, we haven't seen a World Championship victor be back to the World Championship to defend their title. That's something that has not happened yet. And so being able to see Hunter Ace potentially at a global final, that's something that really excites me about this. You know, it's a very different system than what we had in the past. And so I think that global finalist spot is it's just different in regards to what it is. But for Hunter Ace here, this is, I think, a chance to set himself differently than he did in his first season, where he needed to have that back half go super well to secure such a good record, because the first part of his season didn't go so well. It was a different format with Specialist, and I think it took him a little bit of time to get that working before he found the perfect understanding of it and then started just bringing the right decks seemingly every single week versus what his opponents were bringing. Here now we're back in Conquest with just that bit of a kicker in the protection phase. And so looking at his lineup with Mage, Paladin, Priest, and Warrior, he's facing off against Kalento, who rather than having the Paladin deck has the Hunter deck, the Highlander Hunter instead. And for me, Holy Wrath Paladin is the deck I've had my eye on because at times it has looked absolutely amazing, and at other times it has looked absolutely abysmal. And I'm just not sure what's causing that to be the case. Could just be the nature of the deck, I